I never thought buying a quiet piece of land in the middle of nowhere would turn into the most stressful legal battle of my life. But somehow, that's exactly what happened. Funny, isn't it? You spend years just wanting a slice of peace, a little dirt to call your own, and boom, next thing you know, you're squaring off in court against a woman who thinks she's the queen of a kingdom she doesn't even own. Let me rewind a bit. I'm Daniel Harper. I'm 42, recently divorced, working remote in software support, the kind of job where if you're not careful, you might forget what actual sunlight feels like. For most of my adult life, all I wanted was a place where nobody could tell me what to do. No barking dogs, no angry notes about my trash can being in the wrong spot, no strangers showing up to complain about a leaf on my lawn. Just some real honest-to-God peace. So after nearly a decade of scrimping, saving, and dreaming, I finally bought this tiny patch of land just under 2 acres, right on the edge of a neighborhood called Willow Creek Estates. Not the fanciest spot. Trees everywhere, ground a little uneven, birds making a racket in the morning. Technically, it was outside the boundaries of the local HOA. And let me tell you, at the time, that detail felt like nothing. I had no idea it was going to be everything. The dream was simple. Wake up with the sun, sip coffee on a porch. I built myself fish on weekends, maybe string up a hammock between a couple of pines. I never pictured myself in a big house. I wanted a 1-bedroom cabin, nothing more. So I hired this local contractor. Mike Guy looked like he'd been carved out of oak gray beard, the kind of permanent coffee breath that could stun a moose. Always in a flannel shirt, always with a half smile. First day on site. Mike walked the land with me, boots crunching on frost, said, "You know you're lucky, right? Out here, nobody's gonna bother you." And we both laughed. Man, that was the plan? How wrong we both were. We got to work. Brush-cleared foundation, poured birds chirping like they were rooting for us. For about a week, life was quiet, perfect even. Then one morning I spotted her, standing at the edge of my dirt driveway, arms folded tight, sunglasses so big they looked like a disguise. She didn't step onto my property, just stood there staring, taking pictures on her phone, click, 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 like she was building a case for something. I gave her a wave. She gave me nothing. Mike squinted over. "You know her, nope. She looks intense," he said, and just left it at that. That was my first brush with Lorraine Whitmore, the self-proclaimed president of the Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association. You know, the type: hair, perfect smile, sharp as a blade, and a death grip on power, like she's holding back the tide. At that point, I had no clue what she was capable of. Then the letters started showing up. First, a white envelope, big official-looking HOA logo stamped on the corner. "Notice of non-compliance," it screamed in bold. I was still in my sweatpants, coffee going cold, when I read it. Something about unauthorized construction, required architectural plans, preliminary fees owed, and a warning that I'd face penalties if I didn't comply. I actually laughed out loud because, number one, I wasn't in their HOA. Never signed a thing, never agreed to their rules. My realtor had been crystal clear about that. I figured it was just a mistake, a clerical error. Tossed the letter in a drawer and forgot about it until the second one arrived, then a third, then one sent by certified mail. Next thing you know, there's a notice stapled to a wooden post at the end of my driveway: unauthorized development, immediate action required. At that point, things stopped being funny. Not scary, not yet, just confusing. So I called the HOA office. The woman who answered had a voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Willow Creek Estates, this is Brenda." I explained who I was, told her I was getting letters about construction, but that my land wasn't in the HOA. Pause. More typing than seemed necessary. "One moment," she said. Then a new voice, slow polished, like someone who'd spent her life issuing orders. "This is Lorraine Whitmore." Even through the phone, you could just feel the power trip radiating off her. I told her, "Hi, Ms. Whitmore. I think there's been a mix-up. My property isn't within your HOA." "Yes, it is." "No, it isn't." "Yes, it is." I had to blink a few times. "My deed says otherwise." "Well, our community considers your land part of the neighborhood." I tried to laugh it off. "That's not how property law works, with all respect." Silence. Then icy as a glacier. "If you intend to live near our residence, you will follow our standards." There it was. This wasn't about paperwork, it was about power. "I'm happy to follow county codes," I told her, But I'm not joining the HOA. She just said, we'll see about that, and hung up. For the first time since buying the land, I felt this uneasy, crawling feeling in my gut, like I'd stepped on a landmine I didn't even know was there. After that, it escalated. More letters, more fines for stuff I hadn't done. Complaints about noise, about dust, about visual pollution. One neighbor, Frank, a retired guy with a bad back, shuffled over one evening with a couple beers. He said, Lorraine doesn't like outsiders. Outsiders? She thinks everyone near here should fall in line. I tried to joke. So I'm supposed to salute her flag or something? He didn't laugh. Then came the thick envelope legal paper, a court seal, notice of civil action. Lorraine was suing me. She wanted the court to force me to join the HOA, payback fees, follow every last one of her rules. She claimed I was undermining community harmony. It would have been funny if it hadn't felt like getting punched in the stomach. I remember just sitting on my couch, lawsuit papers everywhere, phone buzzing with emails, invoices, notifications, and now this. A legal battle over a tiny cabin on land she didn't even own. I called my sister. She listened quietly. Dan, are you sure this is real? I wish it wasn't. Called Mike. He whistled, man, she's gone nuclear. That was the word for it. Nuclear. By midnight, I knew there was no going back. Next morning, I hired a lawyer, Thomas Reed. Late 50s, calm as a lake at dawn. Wore wire-rimmed glasses, had a voice like a well-oiled hinge. He looked like the sort of guy who spent his life untangling other people's messes. I showed up with a stack of folders, looking like a kid heading into a principal's office. He smiled. Let's see what kind of trouble you've got here. He listened, looked at every document, deeds, maps, emails, photos. Didn't rush. Finally, he leaned back and grinned. This is ridiculous. Is that good? It's good, he said. But ridiculous cases can still waste a lot of your time. He pointed at the county map. Your land is outside their boundary. End of story. So she's got no case. He shook his head. None. She's testing you, seeing if you'll fold. My guess she's done this before, and that's when it hit me. She probably had bullied people into joining, into paying up, into going along just because it was easier than fighting. But not me. I'd waited too long and worked too hard for that patch of land to just roll over. Months passed in a blur of paperwork. Emails, phone calls, meetings with Thomas, my weekends at the cabin. Not peaceful anymore. I spent them documenting everything, taking photos, double-checking permits, keeping records just in case. And Lorraine, she doubled down. She started showing up in person. One afternoon, I'm out sanding wood on the porch and I hear heels click, click, click coming up the gravel. There she is, perfect hair, cream blazer, clipboard like she's some kind of prosecutor. Mr. Harper, she said loud enough for the squirrels to hear. Can I help you? I tried to keep my voice steady. She looked around, nose wrinkling. This structure is out of compliance with community aesthetics. You mean logs and wood? Our community has standards. I'm not in your community. She stepped closer, voice dropping. You're affecting property values. With a tiny cabin in the woods, her lips went thin. You're being difficult. I looked her in the eye. No, I'm being lawful. She stared for a long moment, then hissed, You'll regret this, and just walked away. That night I couldn't sleep. Not out of fear, but because I was starting to realize how far she might go. Court date was set for early fall. 3 weeks before the rumor mill went wild. Some neighbors avoided me. Others, like Frank, quietly offered a beer and a nod. She's scared, Frank told me, of what I asked, of losing. Maybe he was right. Court day came faster than I expected, gray sky drizzle, thermos of bad coffee in my hand. Thomas met me outside, cool as ever. You ready, he asked. As I'll ever be. The courtroom was packed. Neighbors, bloggers, people who just wanted to see a show. Lorraine sat in the front row, back straight, thick binder on her lap. She looked like she'd already won. Her lawyer went first. Young guy, too much gel in his hair. Talked fast about community integrity and shared responsibility. Lorraine nodded along, real dramatic. Then she took the stand, all righteous fury, claiming she was just trying to protect the neighborhood. She described me like I was a ticking time bomb, some outlaw threatening to blow up her little empire. He refuses to cooperate. He ignores standards. He threatens harmony. She actually said that looking right at me. That stung honestly. Because it wasn't true. I care about people. I just don't like being controlled. Then Thomas stood up, calm as ever. Your Honor, this is not a complicated case. He showed the map, one line for Willow Creek Estates, another for my property, 2 separate zones. He laid out deeds, county records, permits, one by one, methodical. Lorraine's smile faded inch by inch. Judge Hayes, an old-timer with a face like weathered stone, leaned in. Ms. Whitmore, you're asking me to force a citizen to join a private association that has no authority over his land. Yes, Your Honor. On what legal basis? Our community charter, which does not apply, the judge cut in. But it's what we've always done. And just like that, her whole argument collapsed. Judge Hayes sighed, rubbed his temples. This court does not enforce tradition. It enforces law. The silence was heavy. You could feel the whole room waiting for something to break. He leaned back, fingers steepled. Ms. Whitmore, do you understand what you are asking this court to do? She nodded a little too fast. Yes, Your Honor. I'm asking you to protect our community. He shook his head. No, you're asking me to override property law. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. I just want what's fair. Thomas leaned in and whispered, watch this. Judge Hayes lifted the deed. This is valid. The permits. Valid. Tax records. Valid. He stacked them on his desk. Your claim is not. Lorraine's face turned ashen. But he's right there. He benefits from our roads, our lighting, our public infrastructure, all paid for by county taxes, which he pays. The judge replied deadpan. A few people in the gallery chuckled. Lorraine glared daggers at them. No, she snapped. This isn't right. He's getting away with it. And right then I got it. This wasn't about rules. It was about losing. For her, it was personal. Judge Hayes straightened. Miss Whitmore, you have repeatedly sent threatening notices, imposed unauthorized fines, and filed a lawsuit with no basis. In legal terms, that is called harassment. The word echoed. Harassment. I was just doing my job, she insisted. You abused your position, he replied. Her lawyer jumped up. Your Honor, we object, but Judge Hayes barked, sit down. The whole room froze. He looked back at Lorraine. This lawsuit is frivolous. He slammed his gavel. Dismissed. For half a second, nobody moved. Then I felt this incredible relief, like someone had loosened a rope around my chest. But he wasn't done. Furthermore, this court finds you knowingly misused the legal system to intimidate a private citizen. Lorraine shook her head, eyes wide. No, that's not true. Bailiff, the judge said calmly, initiate contempt proceedings. The bailiff stood and started walking toward her. What are you doing? This is insane, she yelped, looking around, but nobody came to her rescue. Her neighbors looked away. Her lawyer pretended to study his shoes. Her binder slipped from her lap, papers everywhere, years of control spilling out useless. Ma'am, please stand, the bailiff said. I didn't do anything wrong, she muttered. But she stood anyway, hands trembling. When the cuffs clicked, the sound rang out loud, final, like a lock on a prison cell. She gasped like she'd been punched. This is a mistake, she whispered. But nobody answered. They let her out, still trying to look dignified, but you could see it. She was just scared and small and very, very alone. As soon as the door closed, the courtroom erupted. Whispers, gasps. A few people clapped before they caught themselves. Frank flashed me a thumbs up. I just sat there, stunned, trying to wrap my head around it. Thomas leaned over, grinning. Told you. No case. When I stepped outside, the rain had stopped. Sunlight filtered through the clouds. Everything seemed sharper, lighter, like the world itself was sighing in relief. After that, things moved fast. Local blogs picked up the story. HOA president detained in court. Abuse of power backfires. Board members resigned, meetings were canceled, an audit was launched. Turns out Lorraine had been squeezing people for years, overcharging, bullying, threatening families. My case just happened to be the one that blew it all open. She resigned, disappeared. Some say she lives with her sister now. Some say she tried to start another HOA somewhere else. I never bothered to check. I finished the cabin, built a fire pit, planted trees. Some nights I sit on my porch, coffee in hand, watching the sun drop behind the pines, thinking about how close I came to just folding. It would have been so easy to pay joy and stay quiet. But that's how people like Lorraine win. Here's what I learned the hard way. Power only works when people let it. The minute you question it even a little, it starts to crumble. Neighbors come by sometimes, we laugh, swap stories. Every once in a while, someone will say, "Man, you really took her down." I always shake my head. No, I say she did that to herself. All I did was stand my ground. So now I'll ask you, what would you have done? Would you have fought or just given in to keep the peace? Was Lorraine protecting her community or just her own ego? Drop your thoughts below. I read everyone. And hey, share this if you've ever had to deal with power-hungry leaders or rules that just didn't make sense. If you're still here, thanks for listening. Because stories like this only matter when somebody's willing to hear them.